Hello, it's Miss Karamy from the Crystal Lake Public Library, and today I would like to introduce you to my all-time favorite author in the whole world of kids books and adult books and teen books. He does it all. He does it all. But this one is special. It is, because this one is filled with imagination and a little bit of magic. It is called The Wolves in the Wall, and it is by Neil Gaiman, and it is illustrated by Dave McKean. Look at those amazing pictures. Now, you may recognize Neil Gaiman from such books as Coraline. You might have seen the movie. It's a little creepy. It is. I like a little creepy. I, too, am a little creepy. It's true. So, settle in, get all cozy with a blanket, and let's read The Wolves in the Wall. Yeah, I have special permission from HarperCollins, publisher, to read it to you. I do. It's so scary. There's not even a picture on the inside flap. No, it's not that scary, but it's pretty fun. It's not that scary. It's not, but it's pretty magical. The Wolves in the Wall. Look at that. All right, here we go. Lucy walked around the house. Do you see that? Look at those amazing pictures. Aren't those great? I think those are great. What a very cool house. Inside her house, everything was quiet. Her mother was putting homemade jam into pots. Yum! I love homemade jam. Her father was out at his job playing the tuba. Does your dad play the tuba? My dad doesn't play the tuba. I think that would be a very fun thing for a dad to do, with a lot of oompah-pine. Yeah. Her brother was in the living room playing video games. Yeah. Lucy heard noises. She did. The noises were coming from inside the wall. They were hustling noises and bustling noises. They were crinkling noises and crackling noises. And they were sneaking and creeping and crumpling noises. Now, Lucy knew what kinds of things made noises like that in walls of big, old houses. And she went and told her mother. Now, that's what you should do when you know of a scary, sneaky noise in the wall. You should tell your mom, because they believe all kinds of stuff, don't they? They do. They listen. Moms are good at that. Yeah. There are wolves in the walls, Lucy said to her mother. I can hear them. You must be hearing mice, I suppose. I know what mice sound like. We had a big old farmhouse when I was growing up, and we had mice in the walls, and it's more of a skittering and a scrabbling. It's not very clumpy. It's not crumply at all. It's not mice. Wolves, said Lucy. I am sure it is not wolves, said her mother, for you know what they say. If the wolves come out of the walls, then it is all over. What is all over, said Lucy. It, said her mother. It. Everybody knows that. Now Lucy picked up her pig puppet doll, which she had had since she was a very little baby. I don't think it sounds like mice, she said to her pig puppet. I also find it comforting to talk to my stuffy when I'm a little scared, because they for sure listen. They for sure listen, don't they? Yeah. In the middle of the night, when everything was still, she heard clawing and gnawing and nibbling and squabbling. She could hear the wolves in the walls plotting their wolfish plots and hatching their wolfish schemes. I wonder what a wolfish scheme would be. I wonder. In the day, Lucy felt eyes upon her, watching from the cracks, from the holes in the walls. They peered through eyes in paintings, and she went to talk to her father. That was a very smart thing, because fathers are very wise, and they know lots of things, don't they? Yeah. There are wolves in the walls, she said to him. I don't think that's what they are, Puppet, he said. You have an overactive imagination. Perhaps the noises you heard comes from rats. That's not any better, I don't think. I would not like rats in my walls. Sometimes rats get into big old houses like this. It's wolves, said Lucy. I can feel them in my tummy. And Pig Puppet, he thinks it's wolves as well. Do you sometimes feel the scary things in your tummy? I do. It feels a little scritchy in there, doesn't it? Like tickles that you really don't like. That's what scary feelings in your tummy feel like. Yeah. Well, you can tell your puppet, began her father, and then he said, why am I asking you to tell her anything? She is just a puppet. Lucy patted her pig puppet on the head so he wouldn't be offended. I know, just a puppet. Anyway, you know what they say about wolves, said her father. If the wolves come out of the walls, it's all over. Who says that? Asked Lucy. People, everybody. You know, said her father, and he went back to practicing his tuba. Oompa, oompa. She was drawing a picture when she heard the noise again. A scrambling, rambling, rustling in the walls. There are wolves in the walls, she told her brother. Bats, he said. You think it's bats? She asked. No, he said, I think you are. And he laughed for a long time at his own joke, even though it hadn't been a particularly good one. I am not bats, said Lucy. I'm telling you, there are wolves in the walls. Firstly, there are no wolves in this part of the world, he told her. Secondly, wolves don't live in walls. Only mice and rats and bats and things. And thirdly, if the wolves come out of the walls, it's all over. Who says? Asked Lucy. Mr. Wilson at school, said her brother. He teaches us about wolves and things. And how does he know? Asked Lucy. Everybody knows, said her brother, and he went back to doing his homework. The next day, the noises were louder. We have to do something about those mice, said her mother. Pesky rats, said her father. I'll call someone about them this morning. It's bats. I know it is, said her brother happily. I shall ensure that I sleep with my neck exposed tonight, in case one of them is a vampire bat. And then, if it bites me, I shall be able to fly and sleep in a coffin and never have to go to school in the daytime again. But Lucy did not think it was mice, or rats, or bats. She shook her head at this sad display of ignorance, and then she cleaned her teeth and kissed her mother and father and took herself off to bed. The old house made no noises that night. I don't like it, Lucy told her pig puppet. It's too quiet. But soon enough, she closed her eyes and she was fast asleep. In the middle of the night, there was a yowling and a bumping and a thumping, and the wolves came out of the walls. Oh! That would be a little frightening, wouldn't it? Oh no! Shouted Lucy's mother. The wolves are coming out of the walls! Shouted Lucy's father, picking her up and running down the stairs with her and his best tuba in his arms. It's all over! Shouted her brother as he fled down the stairs beside them. The family went out the back door and into the garden. They huddled at the bottom of the garden that night. The lights were on in every room of their house. And back in the house, they knew the wolves were watching their television and eating the food from the family's parlor and dancing wolfish dances up the stairs and down again. Those wolves are crazy. We should go and live in the Arctic Circle, said Lucy's father, where the houses are made with walls of ice and snow, and there's nothing but polar bears and seals for hundreds of miles. When the wolves come out of the walls, there's nothing else you can do. Said Lucy. We must go and live in the Sahara Desert, said her mother, where the walls are colored tent silks that flap in the hot wind, and there's nothing but camels and desert foxes for thousands of miles. Ugh, said Lucy. I think we should go and live in outer space, said her brother. We could live in an orbiting space station with metal walls and lights on them that blink and flash, and nothing but foozles and squassucks for billions of miles. What are foozles and squassucks? Said Lucy. Outer space things, said her brother. They have a lot of legs, well, except for the squassucks, who don't have any legs at all, but they're friendly enough. I don't want to go live anywhere that isn't my house, said Lucy, and I've left my pig puppet inside. Well, when we can get you a new one wherever we're going, said her mother. Now try to go to sleep. It was chilly at the bottom of the garden, and Lucy missed her pig puppet. She'll be all alone in that house with the wolves, she thought. They could do dreadful things to her. So Lucy crept back up the garden, quieter than any mouse. She slipped back up the back steps and through the back door and into the house. Lucy was standing there in a little hall at the back of the house when she heard some wolves coming down the stairs. They had been eating jam with toast in front of the television and were coming back for more. Where could she go? What could she do? Quick as a flick of a bat's wing, Lucy slipped into the wall. She crept through the house on the inside, through the downstairs, up the middle, and into the walls of her bedroom. There was a huge wolf, as fat as anything, sleeping on her bed. He was wearing her socks, 2 on his back paws, 1 on his ear, and 1 on the tip of his tail. That is a silly wolf. Lucy pushed open the picture that hung above her bed, and she climbed down carefully, quietly. She picked up her pig puppet from the floor. She gave her a hug. Snorkel, snork, snored the wolf, fast asleep. Quiet as a shadow, Lucy climbed up the top of her dollhouse, and from there to the top of her chest of drawers, and from there to the mantelpiece behind the picture, and back into the walls. It's kind of nice in the walls, she thought. I would think so too. I was worried sick about you, she told Pig Puppet, and she squeezed her very tightly. Through the walls crept Lucy, and back out into the garden. Where have you been? They asked her. Well, I had to go and get my pig puppet, she told them. I told you I would have bought you a new one, said her mother, one that was pink and new and not going gray. Well, that is why I went back to get my pig puppet, she said, and she went back to sleep, cuddling her pig. They're very special, aren't they? Little snuggly puppets. The next morning, Lucy's mother went to work, and Lucy's brother went to school, and Lucy and her father sat down at the bottom of the garden. He practiced his tuba and read travel brochures. We could all go live on a desert island, her father told them that evening, over dinner of hamburgers and french fries and little apple pies with astonishingly hot middles that Lucy's mother had brought them when she got back from work. We could live in a grass hut with grass walls on an island in the middle of the sea, with nothing but goats on the island and nothing but fishes in the sea. We could live in a hot air balloon, said her mother. We could live in a tree house on the top of a very tall tree, said her brother. Or we could go back and live in our house again, said Lucy. Duh. What? Said her father. What? Said her mother. What? Said her brother. What? Said the Queen of Malaysia, who had come over to help with the gardening. Well, said Lucy, there's a lot of space in the walls of the house, and at least it isn't cold there. What about the wolves? Asked her father. They are in the house, said Lucy, not the walls. Lucy's mother and father and brother grumbled and frowned. Still, none of them wanted to spend another night sleeping at the bottom of the garden. They tried sleeping in the shed, but it smelled too much of lawnmowers and of the fertilizer used for rhubarb. Oof. So they crept up the back steps and through the back door and into the back hall and into the walls. "We must be very quiet," said Lucy. But the wolves were making such a noise that no one would have heard them anyway. The family crept through the walls of the house, peeking through the eye holes of paintings and through the cracks in things. There were wolves watching television and eating popcorn. They had turned up the television as loud as it would go, and they had spilled popcorn all over the floor, where it stuck to the unfinished slices of toast and jam. There were wolves dashing up the stairs. There were wolves sliding down the banisters, and some of the wolves had put on the family's nicest clothes. They had made big holes in the backs of them for their tails. The family went to sleep in the walls. In the middle of the night, something woke them up. The wolves were having a party. Oh my gosh, look at all the wolf hair. There's wolf hair everywhere, everywhere. That would make me sneeze. They were singing and dancing and telling jokes. One of the wolves was playing her brother's video games, and he was beating all of the high scores. Uh-oh. Two of the younger pack of the wolves had gotten into the pots of Lucy's mother's handmade jam and were eating it straight from the pot and smearing it onto the walls. The biggest, fattest wolf of all was playing an old wolf melody on Lucy's father's second best tuba. "My jam! My walls!" shouted Mother. "My video game high scores!" said Lucy's brother. "My second best tuba!" said Lucy's father. "Right, I've had enough," said Lucy. There wasn't much in the space between the walls, just an old broken chair. So Lucy picked up a chair leg. "You know, I have had just about as much of this as I can take from those wolves too," said her father, said her mother, and said her brother. Each of the family picked up a broken chair leg. "Ready?" said her mother. "Ready," said everyone else. And, "Ah!" howled the wolves. "The people have come out of the walls!" "And when the people come out of the walls," shouted the biggest, fattest wolf, flinging aside the tuba, "it's all over." Round and round they ran, gathering up their most treasured possessions. "Flee!" they shouted. "Flee, flee, flee! For once the people come out of the walls, it's all over." Down the stairs went the wolves, scurrying and hurrying and tumbling over each other in their hurry to get out of the house and to get away. "Whose idea was this anyway?" moaned one of the wolves. And the wolves ran, and they ran, and they ran, and they ran, and they didn't stop running until they got somewhere. There would never be any people in the walls who come out in the middle of the night, whooping and singing people songs and brandishing chair legs. And whether they went to the Arctic, or to the desert, or to outer space, or somewhere else entirely, nobody knows. But from that day to this, those wolves have never been seen. It took the family several days of cleaning up to make the house look anything like it did before the wolves came out of the walls. But eventually, everything was back to the way it had been before, except for Lucy's father's second best tuba, which had sustained severe jam damage. So Lucy's father sold his second best tuba and bought a sousaphone instead, which he had always wanted. And everything went back to normal. Until Lucy noticed something funny. She heard a rustling and a scratching and a squeezing and creaking in the old house. And then one night, she heard a noise that sounded exactly like an elephant trying not to sneeze. Oh no. She went and got her pig puppet. "Do you think we should tell the rest of them?" she asked. "That we have elephants living in the walls of our house? I'm sure they'll find out soon enough," said the pig puppet to Lucy. And they did. Wasn't that amazing? It's crazy how his mind works and how he can come up with the most amazing fun stories. Have you ever tried to write a story? Have you ever thought up an amazing think? Have you ever thought up the most amazing think and then wrote it down and told your story to somebody? I dare you. I dare you to write down a story and tell it to someone. I think that that would be exceptional. I think we all have a little bit of storyteller in us. So maybe today, try to write down a fun, exciting story and make someone laugh or get a little scared or cry. It's all good. You're creative. I know you can do it. Well, my friends, I will see you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.